In this episode, we learn from a true leader in the field of mental toughness and resilience. I'm Steve Blatt, and this is Face It and Ace It, your place for proven study strategies and insights that will help you crush any big exam. I am so excited to share this masterclass with you. We have a conversation with Jim Brault, the Chief Operating Officer of SEALFIT and Unbeatable Mind. Unbeatable Mind is a training program that teaches people how to deal with high-stress situations in order to perform at their peak capacity. I went through the Unbeatable Mind program when I was studying for my board exam the second time, and what I learned from it played a huge role in my ability to pass that exam. In this conversation that we have with Jim, he's incredibly generous, not only with his time, but with the content that he shares. He breaks down the 4 pillars of Unbeatable Mind, and in so doing, gives you practical drills and exercises that you can incorporate into your exam prep right away that will maximize not only the amount of information you learn, but the amount of information that you'll be able to access on exam day. Jim explains why negativity destroys performance and talks about why accessing information is more important on exam day than how much information you know. And the skills and tools that are taught in Unbeatable Mind prime you for accessing the maximum amount of information that you possibly can. In addition to being the COO of SEALFIT and Unbeatable Mind, Jim is also a trainer and a coach for SEALFIT and Unbeatable Mind. He is a former Fortune 500 Chief Human Resources Officer, and he is an author of several books, most recently, Easy Makes Us Weak, Forging Mental Toughness, Resilience, and Character. So, please grab something that you can take notes with and sit back and enjoy this masterclass with Jim Brault. Okay, well, I am so happy to be here with Jim Brault, who is the COO of SEALFIT and Unbeatable Mind. I've talked about my experiences with Unbeatable Mind previously on episodes of Face It and Ace It. This was a course that I used when I was preparing for my board exam the second time, when I really needed to develop the mental strengthening skills and tools to get over the fear, stress, and anxiety that I was experiencing. And it really made a world of difference. And I'm so happy to be able to share some of what I learned in Unbeatable Mind. And having Jim here is going to allow us to do that. So just as a quick refresher for my audience, I introduced Jim in the intro leading up to this interview already, but Jim is, in addition to being the COO of SEALFIT and Unbeatable Mind, is an Unbeatable Mind coach and trainer, a former Fortune 500 Chief Human Resources Officer, and the author of Easy Makes Us Weak, Forging Mental Toughness, Resilience, and Character. So, Jim, thank you so much for being here. And I can't wait to share your wisdom with our audience.
Oh, well, first of all, thanks for having me on, Steve. I appreciate it, and appreciate everyone listening. So, it's interesting, you talk about face it and ace it in high pressure situations. Just a quick background, which you probably talked about before on previous podcasts. SEALFIT and Unbeatable Mind came out of Mark Devine's experience in the Navy SEALs, right? In the SEALs and going through BUDS, and incorporated a lot of the training he had done up until that point. But so for the funnel of people that even get to BUDS, or basic underwater demolition SEAL training, which is the selection process for Navy SEALs, that's a huge funnel. So of all the people who want to even get there, there's a huge weeding out process. So the people that get there, they can absolutely crush all the physical standards. They know how to do it. But even with all that selection, only about 15% of the people make it through the initial 6-month process. And the Navy wanted more SEALs. They wanted more special operators they just need it, unfortunately, around the world. But they were pretty much breaking even. You know, they'd get some and people would retire or unfortunately get injured or killed. So they were kind of, you know, at a stable number and they wanted to increase it without lowering the bar, as you can imagine.
Sure.
So Mark Devine had so much experience and success training and mentoring people to get through that physically and mentally tough that they hired him to create a mentoring program for Navy SEALs. Through the years, people that have gone through our programs and gone on to go through BUDS, instead of having a 15% graduation rate, over 90% have graduated BUDS.
Wow.
I mean, that's huge.
Yeah.
And the folks that didn't make it pretty much because they got hurt and they,
Sure.
you know, they couldn't go through it. Then over time, we expanded that from just SEALFIT, which is pretty much military hard training, to Unbeatable Mind, which encompasses a lot more. So when you talk about high stakes, Navy SEALs are pretty much the highest there is. You know, they make a mistake and people die.
Sure.
Just flat out, right? And it could be themselves, it could be their team members, or they're not stopping a threat that needs to be stopped. So, so most people don't have that reality in their life. That's not what they do.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. But they have their own battlefield. So their own battlefield might be their bar exam or their medical boards. In fact, a couple of my clients, I coach people through getting ready for the bar, getting ready for their boards, and there are other kind of high stakes programs as well. So what gets in the way? It's generally not that people aren't smart and they don't know the material. That's almost never the issue. That's sort of solvable, right? Most people are type A, they're grade A, right? They've gotten A's, they're smart. But a lot of things get in the way. So the first thing that I help people with is what we call the Big Four of mental toughness. That is taught to Navy SEALs. We probably flesh that out a little bit more, but let me give you your listeners four.
Sure.
The first is breath control. It's called arousal control, but it kind of has a different connotation depending on where your mind is. But it's breath control. I'll list them and come back. So number one is breath control. Number two is positivity. Number three is visualization. And four is goals and micro goals. Okay, so breath. When you get stressed, what do you think happens to your breath?
You breathe faster and more shallow.
Yeah. Or you stop.
Yeah.
Right. So if I said to you, breathe like you're panicking, everyone would know how to do that. Breathe like you're petrified, everyone would know how to do it. Why? Because we've been there, or we can imagine that.
Sure.
If you say breathe like you're confident, you take a deep breath in, you'd exhale fully. If breathe like you got this in the bag. Yeah, you put a smile on the face. You have the physiology for that. And not to go into too much detail, but your breath and your rate of breath changes your brainwave patterns. So the slower you breathe, you have different, you have gamma, beta, alpha, theta, and delta, right? But most of us hang out in the beta or high beta. In high beta, you can think very quickly, but can also make you very anxious.
Mm-hmm.
And you tend not to learn as well in that high beta. You tend to learn better in alpha. You're a little more suggestible. You remember things, and you have to slow down your breathing to do that. Okay. So one of the things we teach is box breathing, which I think you've shared on previous podcasts.
Yep. But
the average adult breathes probably 14 to 18 times per minute. And that's going to be consistent with a high beta. Again, you can think very quickly, but you don't really rely on your instinct. And you can be anxious, right? It can just make you uneasy. When you breathe 3 to 4 times a minute or 6 times a minute, you start going in that alpha and you feel more calm. And then you can access what you know, because sometimes it's not what you know, it's what you can access.
Mm.
Right? So number one is breath, and it's a training. So we train that in the morning through our morning ritual. We've got, Unbeatable Mind apps that you can do it. But basically it's a box breathing it's the same ratio of inhale to hold to exhale and then to hold. Okay. So we breathe through our nose because it stimulates the rest and relaxation or parasympathetic nervous system. If you breathe through your mouth, it stimulates the sympathetic fight, flight, or freeze. And you definitely don't want to do any of those in a high stakes exam, right? You want to stay there. You don't want to fight anyone, and you definitely don't want to freeze. So you want to be relaxed and be able to, again, access that. So you're going to just breathe through your nose and let your belly relax. So let's say you breathe into a count of 5. And then when you hold, you want to act as if you're still breathing. So you have that feeling of expansion, but totally relaxed. Like you don't want tension in your neck or shoulders or anything, and you let your belly relax. Then you hold, and it's best if you close your eyes or at a minimum soften your gaze. Obviously, you're not driving while doing this.
Right.
Then you exhale through the nose again. And then at the bottom, act as if someone's doing Heimlich, and then relax your belly. Now, when you hold on the bottom, most people aren't used to that. We're used to, even as kids, you have games like hold your breath underwater or hold your breath. No one has a game as a kid of exhale and hold. We don't do that.
Right.
So it can make you a little nervous. If you're anxious already, skip the bottom exhale because it may make you more anxious. But over time, you should get to the box breathing because then 5 and then inhale again. Yep. And if 5 is too long, do 3, right? But just get that routine in more and more. It sounds so simple, like, oh, it's just breathing.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what, Jim, before you go on, let me just interject very, very briefly. So when I took my ophthalmology board exam the second time, when I passed,
okay,
so the board exam has 2 components. There's a written exam that you have to pass. And then once you do that, you have to take an oral examination. Mm-hmm. And you obviously have to pass both in order to be fully board certified. So it was the written exam that when I took the first time, I failed. And that's when I went to work on my mental toughness skills, things like what I learned through Unbeatable Mind. And I will say this, and I brought this up in previous episodes of Face It and Ace It. I used box breathing during the written exam. Now, there are certain exams where it's not feasible to do something like that. On an oral examination, you have to be very careful about your appearance, how you are appearing to the examiners. However, on a multiple choice examination that you're taking on a computer like I did, and the majority of these high stakes exams are multiple choice exams, you can do that. And what I did was I knew in advance that I wanted to use this technique. And so I made that part of my prep. And
nice.
I knew that it was 250 questions. I knew that every 10 to 15, I was going to stop no matter what and go through box breathing for about 15 seconds. And because I was training through that, you're right, that exhale part can make you a little bit more anxious. But because I had trained through it for the months leading up to the exam, I was ready for it. And I got to tell you, that 10 to 15 seconds of box breathing every couple of questions helped a lot. It paid off.
Beautiful.
So,
it's a great application.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So that's number 1 of the 4. Second is positivity. And this can be positive in physiology. If you're saying get in the physiology of being defeated, get in the physiology of being worried, right? Get in the physiology of being confident. You throw your shoulders back, you look up, you might smile. So that's part of it. But a big part of it also is self-talk. If we could record ourselves, and it's estimated we talk to ourselves some, 50,000 times a day, and 90%, it's estimated 90% of the thoughts we have today are the same ones we had yesterday, which, it depends on how good the thoughts are, and that internal dialogue. Most people, if they talk to their friends the way they talk to themselves, they would have 0 friends. And in my experience anyway, some people who are super encouraging towards other people are super critical of themselves. Yeah. So how does this manifest or show up? Well, so one of my clients was going through the bar exam, and you do these practice exams and you get a score and it's, red, you've failed. then what goes through your mind? I'll never do this. This is stupid. I don't know why I'm in it. And, you get down this fear loop, and then you don't even access those skills you have, right? And the knowledge you have. If you go, hoo-yah, no problem. I've got this. It's just a learning process, boom, boom, boom. And you keep going, and then you stay fine. But guarantee, when people are looking at that waiting for that score, guarantee they're holding their breath. They're like, and then they go, or they say something, right? They say whatever. Okay, good. There's also something called an anchor. So there's songs, Steve, I know that you have, that you hear, remind you of someone, or a time, could have been decades ago.
Yep.
I was, my wife and I were having dinner the other day with my brother and sister-in-law, and they had this Sirius XM radio, yacht rock. Have you heard of that?
No.
So they're all like the sort of soft rock songs of the 70s and 80s. And, like we knew every lyric. And I'm horrible at lyrics, but like just, you knew it was sort of fun. And it reminded me of, like immediately you think of where you were, who you're going out with, whatever.
Sure.
So if you say, like, let's say something bad happens, you're like, whatever, you say whatever you want. Let's just say for the podcast, darn it, right? I don't know when to say that, but darn it. Well, okay, so you're feeling like you're a failure, something happened, and then you say that word. Well, guess what? This isn't the first time you've ever said that word. Every other time that you screwed up or you felt like a failure, you said that word, and all the time. So you stack that. So when you're saying that word, you're physiologically, or sort of your nervous system is remembering all those other times. It's like, have you ever had an emotional reaction that was way over the issue that happened?
Oh yeah.
Like, wow, that was a really strong reaction.
Yeah.
It's because like you didn't say anything, and then it built up, and then you weren't reacting to that one issue, you were acting the 20 times that it happened that you didn't say anything, and you kept it all bottled in. Yeah. So the same thing, if you say a word, whatever word you say, be very, very conscious of how you're linking that to other failures. Okay, so positive self-talk. Hoo-yah, I got this, easy day. That's why we train the way we train. So we might do, for example, a mile of lunges with a 20-pound weight vest. Guess what? You have a lot of opportunity within that mile to talk to yourself.
Yep.
And it can go negative super fast.
Yep.
Any one lunge isn't that hard, right? You can do it unless you pull a muscle. Like, yeah, it sort of sucks the entire time.
Yep.
But if you're going, hoo-yah, I got this, easy day, you do a mantra, whatever, you just get through it pretty soon. Hey, I'm pretty far. Hey, I'm halfway, I get to turn around. And now you're training your mind more than your legs, because there's better ways to train your legs.
Yep.
It's an awesome way to train your mind. Okay. So positive self-talk, positivity, you got this. Instead of being a critic, give that critic a new job, just got a promotion. They're going to be your number one coach or cheerleader, whatever term works for you. Okay. They're going to be super encouraging. That's hard. It sounds easy, but changing your inner dialogue is key, but it's hard.
I'll tell you, sorry. Just real briefly, another one that I personally used. So these incantations, this is, I've talked about, there are certain things that when you start to do, you feel a little crazy, and really they don't matter at all. You don't need to tell anyone you're doing these things.
Yeah.
But honestly, the more you get pushed out of your comfort zone, the better. If you keep doing what you've always done, you're gonna keep getting what you've always gotten. You need to change it up. So these incantations for me pushed me out of my comfort zone. The one that I ended up using was from the U.S. national soccer teams. We watch soccer in my family.
Okay.
So that I believe that we will win.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember hearing that. That's what I would be saying to myself, and I would say it to myself during the exam. And you're absolutely right. The physiological responses I would feel when I would hear it and say it, I get like a tingling in my shoulders and just start to feel fired up.
Nice.
It was almost like by that occupying my mind, it didn't let the negative self-talk in. Yeah. And it feels a little hokey. It sounds a little hokey, but in the moment it works. And if it gets you to the result you want, who cares? If it, you know what I mean? So that's, my personal take on that. It works. So
yeah. Well, and I love that, Steve. You said it's really important. you know, you could say, oh, it's hokey. Great. Don't do it. Where's your mind go?
Yeah,
It will
exactly.
go negative.
Yeah, for
It'll go
sure.
negative. It's
For sure.
gravity.
For
So
sure.
people go, all right, fine. Sing a song. Do something.
Yeah.
Get something positive. Write this down, listeners, if you do, or just remember this. Negativity destroys performance. Think back. Has negativity ever helped? I'm not saying constructive criticism like, hey, I got to work on this. That's just factual, right? But has negativity or self-negative concept ever helped you, right? You might have had to go into an anger loop or frustrating loop, but
Yep.
you didn't stay there. You then went, okay, now I'm inspired. So you're going, oh, I have to get angry or pissed off to be inspired. Okay, you can like get rid of that part and just go get inspired. But that's your pattern. So
Yep.
don't say, oh, I have to get pissed off to go do something. That's a choice. It's what you did. But you didn't do something from getting pissed off. You went from pissed off or frustrated or angry to inspired.
Yep.
So don't confuse the two.
Yep.
Right? Because
Yep.
if you were frustrated, you had to get out of that state
Yep.
to go move.
Yep.
And so I'm like, okay, fine. Don't use a mantra. Don't use, as you say, incantation.
Yep.
Just tell me where your mind goes.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, here's another thing that, that I realized for myself was, all right, so, I wouldn't want to tell anyone that I was using an incantation or that I believe that we will win thing. The opposite was, you talked about the fear spiral, which is totally true. For me, at least, it was both a fear spiral and a shame spiral. There was shame involved in it.
Yeah.
Would I ever tell anyone I feel shameful about missing a question? How ridiculous is that?
Right.
So, the converse is true too. If you let yourself buy too much into, what you consider, crazy or hokey or whatever, you're lost anyway. Forget that.
Yeah.
Give that stuff up. You need to be doing other things. And these incantations work. So
yeah, exactly. And what people like is like, okay, they teach us to Navy SEALs, right? Because it works. I was never a Navy SEAL, but I did do COO, which is it's a program we have at SEALFIT. It's over 50 hours, no sleep, nonstop, run by Navy SEALs and Navy SEAL instructors. And it is no joke. It's modeled after Hell Week. It's not as long, but it's long enough. And it is. So when I was there, I was about a month shy of my 55th birthday. And I was the oldest guy. I think the next oldest was like 41. And then we had some teenagers, some guys in their 20s. I think 4 people wanted to be SEALs. 1 guy wanted to be a Marine recon guy. And these guys were in great shape. I could not believe how quickly people quit. I was shocked. I mean, it was super hot. It was like 92. And it was hard, but not like, oh my God, this is, any one thing was doable.
Yeah.
Any one thing was doable. It wasn't like this is physically impossible. It totally sucked and it was hard, but it was doable. If you focused on that, if you started going, oh my God, how long is this going to be? I can't sleep, blah, blah, blah. That's where you came back and go, I can't do it. Yeah. Why? Because you were focusing on not what's in front of you, but what does this mean? Am I ashamed? What happens if I don't pass? How will my family look? How will I feel? I've never failed anything in my life. All that stuff. So it's going out of the present. So super important stuff. Let me give you the next 2 things.
Yeah, for sure.
Third is visualization. And this is visualizing yourself be successful. So again, if you say, hey, you just passed your boards, or you just passed your bar exam, or you just passed your real estate exam, or insurance, or whatever you need to do, how would you look? And you'd have a physiology, you'd smile, you've got all that stuff going on. So visualize yourself doing this. If it's more knowledge versus a physical skill, then you're going to really think about how you feel after you pass. Okay. And the last is goals and micro goals. Micro goals is chunking it down to its smallest piece. So for example, if I went through COO, is more than 50 hours, I'm not going to think about Sunday. I'm going to think about what's right in front of me. I've got to get through this evolution. And oh, by the way, if I'm tired, I bet my buddies are tired too. Let me focus on them. How can I help them? Okay. And then when that's done, good. We'll get maybe something to eat, a little snack, some water. Okay. Then we've got the next one. I don't know what it is. Hoo-yah. It'll be something. It'll suck and it'll be hard. Great. Next. And so I just focus on those micro goals. So what happens is when we don't stay present, we start to catastrophize, right? Oh, well, what if I don't pass this? And what does that mean? And I'll be embarrassed. I'll be shamed, right? And, then I won't, and will I still have a job? And all this stuff starts to happen. Great. How does that feel? How does that help you be at your best and access what you know? It doesn't.
Right.
Okay. Another breath, if you will, is called the mother breath. It's a 1-2 ratio. It's also inscribed on the tombs in Egypt, this breath. And the breath is, instead of the box with 4, it's in, let's say, to a count of 4 and out to a count of 8. Okay. So in, or 3 or 6, whatever ratio works for you. But it helps you to be present right in the moment and not be off somewhere else, because we generally can deal with the present. What we do is we're focused on the past and regrets we had, or future unknown, and we're worried, right? But if you can really stay present, we've dealt with every single present up till now, every single present we've dealt with. Okay. So that's another breathing practice, the 1-2 ratio. So those are the big 4. They're pretty straightforward intellectually. You get it. Okay. Yep. Breath control, positivity, visualization, goals, and micro goals. Break it down. Got it. Yep. Got it. Yeah. Got it. Doesn't mean you're going to do it. It means you intellectually understood it.
Right.
Right. So now it's, how do you train that? So that's why we get into sort of the SEALFIT evolutions of, you train a certain way to use those skills. So for example, we wouldn't do like, a push press or something just by itself. We do that,
right,
but we would go, all right, I'm going to use my breath, right, in a certain way. And I'm going to say something in my mind in a certain way. And I'm going to visualize. So let's say we have 100 to do. You can't do 100 in one sitting. You've got to break it down. So you're like, okay, or like, oh, do 300 burpees. Like, that sucks. Okay, do 30 sets of 10. That's different. Okay, I can do 10. Boom, I do 10. And I breathe and I do another 10. So whatever that equivalent is for you, break it down, but train yourself in these big 4 techniques. Because you can't just read a book and then go, okay, I'm going to apply this in a high stress situation. Why would it work? You've never trained it in a high stress situation. So put yourself in managed high stress situations. So some things we do, again, I'm not saying for people to do this. I'm just giving examples.
Sure.
Like we put people in ice baths. It takes your breath away. Your mind goes somewhere else unless you're trained. And then you go, okay, and you can breathe normally, and you can control yourself, and you can submerge yourself underwater. And all we're doing there is testing, can you control your breath? Because everyone can hold their breath for 10 seconds. But if you're panicking, you will stay under for about a second. And then you'll come up, not because you can't hold your breath, because you can't control your mind yet.
Right.
So when you do things like that, or like I said, some kind of really sort of lousy a mile lunges or whatever is appropriate,
right,
that's where you train those skills. And then when you get into your real high stress situation, you've already trained it in other stressful situations. Or, you got to be patient with your children when you're tired.
Sure.
Cool. Right. So,
Jim, I'll jump in and just briefly explain a couple of ways that I think you can relatively quickly, relatively safely simulate the sort of fight or flight panic that will come up when you arrive on exam day, when you're taking a high stress exam. And this, again, is something that I've talked about in previous episodes of Face It and Ace It. You can find a proximal sort of challenge that makes you just as fearful. For a lot of people, that's public speaking. And so what I said was, go look up your local Toastmasters club, go to a few meetings, volunteer to get up and give a 5-minute talk. It will create the same sort of physiological responses that the sympathetic overdrive, that fight or flight or freeze response that you talked about, the same things will happen to you. And whatever fear you have of choking or going blank on exam day, you will have that same fear when you get up in front of a group of strangers to give a 5-minute talk. You're going to find out either A, you're not going to go blank and choke, or B, if you do, you're going to recover adequately. And that will boost your self-confidence going into exam day. The second thing you can do is you can purposefully and intentionally over-caffeinate yourself a bit. You can take down a few espressos before you sit down to study or take a practice exam. And it will, to a certain degree, simulate for you the increased heart rate, the bit of jitteriness. And that will then create an environment where you can start to implement these skills that you're talking about. So you can start to implement the controlled breathing exercises. You can start to implement the positive self-talk and the mantras. And that way, you, even if it doesn't actually play out that way on exam day, the mind doesn't know that. The brain doesn't know that. The brain doesn't know the difference between something that we've imagined and something that we've really experienced before.
Yeah.
The bottom line is it's going to make you more confident, and that's the key.
That's great. That's awesome. I really like that. Yeah, you're simulating that, you know, that high stress situation in other ways. So you're used to it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, good. Great. Maybe a couple other things that fall into this. So the big four is kind of how you deal with that, right? And how you stay mentally tough and focused. Then there's what do you focus on? One of the things we talk about is front sight focus. So this happens to come from shooting, but so on a weapon, you have your rear sight and then your front sight. And so when you line it up with the target, we're taught, focus on the front sight, not the target. Because if you focus on the target, you know, your aim could be all over the place. If you focus on the front sight, you know, you do that. And then you go to another one. And again, some people might not like the analogy, but just maybe go with it just to understand it. So you can only attack one target at a time. And if you're like, oh my gosh, what's around me? You have to be aware, but you can only dispatch one thing at a time. And so when your focus is on that, then focus on that. And then you go to the next thing and the next thing. So part of it, when people are looking at high stakes exams, it's really important to understand, what are your values? What are your top values? One of my clients wanted to compete in a triathlon, and he thought, I'd be really psyched about that for him.
Yeah.
And I was neutral. It's not about what I feel. It's like, okay, so tell me how that's going to go with the amount of time you have to invest studying for your board. And so, he was like, well, I've got to do really well. I said, at what? At the triathlon. I said, and the boards, right? He said, yeah. I said, so is there any trouble with that? And oh, by the way, you're in a relationship and, you have to sleep. And so I think sometimes people are used to being such high achievers in all areas of their life that it's really hard to decompress and downshift. And so you're like, okay, I'm in overdrive. I'm redlining everywhere. Let me know how that goes for you, right? Because relationships don't really like to be redlined, and you're going to have the time investment. So you got to, get sleep. And I'm not saying don't train or don't physically train, but does it really make sense to, study for your medical boards and, be training for the Olympics, and also you have a 3-month-old? That's probably not going to work. Okay, so think about what's really important to you right now. We have a tool that we call FITS, which stands for fit, importance, timing, and simplicity. So it could be a great goal for you, but the timing right now with the other thing you have to do, it might be, you can do that in a year and it's not going to make that much of a difference. But if you try to do both, you're probably going to do sort of a half-baked job at both, and it's going to be super stressful. So think that through, right? So that's part of even the big four of set the right goals.
Yeah.
Most people know SMART, P, right? Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. And then the P is for stated in the positive. You could have a lot of really smart goals, but and it does have a date, but the timing isn't quite right. Or the priorities. We have another one, PROP, which is, your priorities. What are your realities of the situation? If you've got a newborn, yeah, you're not going to sleep much. And, your spouse, whoever it is going to need help and support. So then you think, okay, what are my options? And then what's my path? What am I actually going to do? So I think part of it is really thinking through, given this really important thing in your life,
Yes.
do you want to downshift in a couple areas? Doesn't mean you're going to downshift forever,
Yes.
but you might want to do it for a little bit.
Absolutely. And, Jim, I think I love hearing this FITS and PROP, these acronyms.
Yeah.
These are new to me. I love hearing them. I think that they are directly applicable to how one plans studying as well. And I'm thinking now about the title of your book, right? So easy makes us weak. And I think that it's so common and so it's almost like a natural thing for people who are sitting down to prepare for a high stakes exam to gravitate toward reviewing the material they already know and they're already comfortable with at the expense of learning material that they don't know well and they're not comfortable with yet. It's a huge mistake, obviously, that goes without saying, but it's so incredibly common. And I think that what you need to do is you need to calibrate your head. You need to get your head right. And you need to realize that you are being drawn to doing something easy and it is going to hurt you. You need to do the opposite and draw yourself towards something that's hard and make it more comfortable for you. That's the only way. Repetition's the mother of skill. You need to get your hands dirty with it. And so I think that all of, the FITS and the PROP acronym work so beautifully, not just for how to structure your life during the weeks and months leading up to a big exam, but also how to structure your exam days. You need to keep yourself in check and make sure that you're hitting the highest yield things for you. It doesn't matter what's high yield for anyone else preparing for the same. What's highest yield for you? And I think that going through these goal setting practices will make a huge difference.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great point. And a lot of people misunderstand easy makes us weak. So they're like, oh, you always got to do hard stuff, or it's all about physical. And it's not. Physical is a metaphor, and it was a physical event, but it's really about easy or hard, right? Easy is, I don't want to have that conversation.
Yeah.
Because I'm afraid of confrontation, or I'm afraid I'm going to be rejected, or afraid whatever. Okay, that's easy though. That's easy, to step out. It doesn't mean you got to go do Kokoro or SEALFIT evolution. It means those things, to go through it doesn't matter. Why are you going to keep repeating something you already know how to do? Go to those questions that you're like, so here's the ones you'll always get right. Here's the ones you'll probably never get right. And in that middle of sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. That's where you study, because those are the higher yield ones. You're going to feel good by doing the ones you always do. Yeah, great. But if you're honest, you're like, I'm not really pushing it. I'm not really challenging myself. And a lot of people come to SEALFIT Unbeatable Mind because they've been coasting, even though they're successful in some area of their life or multiple areas of their life. But you know what? I used to ask a ton of questions. I used to challenge myself. Now I'm kind of comfortable.
I'll say because they have been successful. That was the issue with me, is that when you've had a lot of success in your life, academically, professionally, in other ways, in a way it induces a type of coasting. And so you're so used to getting things right, when you're studying, that when you suddenly hit topics that are challenging for you, it throws you off your game. And so I think that to learn a approach like what's taught in Unbeatable Mind, it readies you for the moment, right? So you've talked today about practices to stay in the moment, mindfulness, super important. I think that you also need readiness for the moment, so that when the moment strikes, you're already ready. You're not kind of caught on your heels, walking backwards in retreat, then wondering to myself, what did Jim Brault say that one day? No, you can't do that. It needs to be instinct. And so you need to be preparing when the times are easy and the times are good, so that when you hit that moment, and those moments come up on high stakes exams, don't fool yourself. They do. You need to be ready for those moments in advance. So.
Yeah. And I love what you said, Steve, about putting yourself, getting into that physiology of high stakes, because it's a physiological response, whether it's you got a cotton mouth or your heart's beating, and then if you're used to that, you're like, cool, I'm just getting ready. Or, oh, by the way, I'm going to slow my heart rate down. I'm going to slow my breathing down to tactical breathing. Because if you think about it, in certain professions like SEALs, they have to be able to shoot.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like, and so you have to calm yourself down, put yourself in those high pressure situations, so it's not new. You're like, okay, no problem. I know we've been going for a bit here.
Yeah.
Maybe kind of two things to leave your listeners with.
Great.
One is sort of spot drills and spot checks. So you can set your iPhone for, some random time, 83 minutes. And if you want to work on, this breathing is new, this sort of present breath or box breathing is new for me. I tend to hold my breath. A lot of times when people are looking at the computer screen, we tend to hold our breaths, or look at the phone, we tend to hold our breath. And so when that buzzer goes off or alarm goes off, I'm just going to know, have I been breathing? Have I been breathing deeply? What's my internal dialogue? Have I been encouraging to myself, or I've been negative or neutral? I just haven't done either one. So like you said, every 15 minutes or so, you got up and you did, the box breathing for 15 seconds or so. So, or you should be grateful. Hey, I'm grateful. Yes, this is a high stake exam, but I'm grateful that I had the support at home, or I had the funds to be able to do this, or I live in a country where I could go to school and do all these things. And so when you're grateful, it sort of shifts with, I've got to do this. Do I get to do this?
Yep.
When we're training, I always kid is like, I say, some people don't have legs. They're, my legs are sore. Yeah, some people don't have legs, or they're in a wheelchair. They couldn't do this if they wanted to. And it's sort of jesting, but sort of not. Like, you know what? We're physically fit. It's a privilege. How grateful are we that we can train? Or how grateful are we that we get to take this test and we can help people and earn a great living? I mean, people have worse problems in the world. So you can sort of reframe where you are by doing those spot checks, and then you can do a spot drill. So for example, one woman, one of my clients, she was saying, you would not believe in law school. I mean, people are like just downing drugs like left and right, like, illegal drugs, legal drugs,
right.
And just eating like, getting drunk. Like they're just trying to relieve that pressure.
Yep.
And she's the weird one doing push-ups or air squats, but she's
Yeah.
like, you know what? I'd rather do that to get going. And also maybe like you're sitting down and you're sitting for hours and hours on end, on the computer. It's like, get up, walk around, go do some steps, do whatever. All right. So, and then lastly, and this is kind of looking at your why. Why are you doing this? Why? Because in the moment, you can feel overwhelmed. You can feel like, why does it matter? Or you don't get the result you wanted. It can get discouraging. So go back to, well, why are you doing this? Why do you want to be a doctor? Why do you want to be an attorney? Why do you want to get this financial planning or real estate or whatever? Go back to that and make it about someone else. Like if you go, so I make money. Okay, great. But what does money mean to you?
Mm-hmm.
Money might mean freedom or security or generosity. And the more it's about other people, then the more you're going to do it. And so you're thinking about, hey, I'm helping people, my family, or I'm helping clients. And then that why is bigger than you. Because just like in Kokoro, if it's just about you, you'll quit. Because, at some point, nobody's that tough. Yeah. You will be tired. You'll be beyond what any semblance of physical energy left.
Yeah.
But when you're there to help someone else, like you would just do it. So think about your why, and also, what do you make it mean? You talked about shame. What does it mean if you get something wrong?
Yep.
What does it mean if you don't do as well as you thought? That's usually that performance anxiety, or what it means. It's shame. I'm no good. I've always been a high achiever. And a lot of people equate overachieving or achievement with love, with support, with reinforcement. Yep. And so this isn't just about an exam. It's about, oh my gosh, I'm a horrible person if I don't do this, because, my parents always gave me support and recognition and love from achieving. And so we equate achievement with love, even though probably we wouldn't articulate it like that.
Sure.
At a nervous level and a subconscious level, we absolutely equate those.
Totally.
So not doing well on the exam means a whole bunch of stuff instead of you got X on an exam.
Yeah.
Okay. And, okay. Right. No one comes into your office and say, Steve, what'd you get on the MCAT?
Right.
No, dude, who cares?
Yeah.
Right. You're like, are you a good doctor?
Yeah.
Do you stay up? Do you care about me? Right. Yeah. Do I trust you? Those are the things, not what score did you get? I'm sure there's implications, but I would get maybe the last thing, like, what does it mean versus what do you want it to mean, and not get into those old things, because that's where you get in that downward spiral, that fear loop, right? And that just goes bad really fast.
Jim,
so hopefully that was give you some ideas.
Yeah. Jim, this was so great. Man, so much valuable content for our listeners. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
I am fired up. I'm an Mind alum. Hoo-yah, baby. Oh my gosh. So please tell our listeners where they can find you.
Yeah. So you can go to unbeatablemind.com, right? That has all our programs. And we've got everything. We've got online programs. They can come to our live events. We hold in Carlsbad, California. We've got one coming up in September. People can get us as coaches. There's books, a lot of stuff there. And if you like the SEALFIT stuff, SEALFIT.com is also there. There's online programs. There's events that you can go to. We're unveiling next year a 6, 12, 24, and 50 plus hour event. So they're definitely doable, and you learn a ton. So
fantastic, Jim. Thank you so much.
And, all right, Steve, thanks for having me on.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, Jim.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Jim Brault. There is so much valuable content in there, and all of it is going to help you so much as you are preparing for your big exam, as well as when exam day arrives. All of the things that he talked about will allow for you to have productive study sessions and then access all the information that you learned during the stresses and rigors of exam day. Check out Unbeatable Mind at unbeatablemind.com and SEALFIT at SEALFIT.com. And check out Jim's most recent book, Easy Makes Us Weak, Forging Mental Toughness, Resilience, and Character. All right, leave some comments down below. Let me know what you think. Please hit that subscribe button and share this video and others with anyone who you think might benefit from them. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, shape up, and we'll see you back here on Face It and Ace It. In this episode, we learn from a true leader in the field of mental toughness and resilience. I'm Steve Blatt, and this is Face It and Ace It, your place for proven study strategies and insights that will help you crush any big exam. I am so excited to share this masterclass with you. We have a conversation with Jim Brault, the Chief Operating Officer of SEALFIT and Unbeatable Mind. Unbeatable Mind is a training program that teaches people how to deal with high-stress situations in order to perform at their peak capacity. I went through the Unbeatable Mind program when I was studying for my board exam the second time, and what I learned from it played a huge role in my ability to pass that exam. In this conversation that we have with Jim, he's incredibly generous, not only with his time, but with the content that he shares. He breaks down the 4 pillars of Unbeatable Mind, and in so doing, gives you practical drills and exercises that you can incorporate into your exam prep right away that will maximize not only the amount of information you learn, but the amount of information that you'll be able to access on exam day. Jim explains why negativity destroys performance and talks about why accessing information is more important on exam day than how much information you know. And the skills and tools that are taught in Unbeatable Mind prime you for accessing the maximum amount of information that you possibly can. In addition to being the COO of SEALFIT and Unbeatable Mind, Jim is also a trainer and a coach for SEALFIT and Unbeatable Mind. He is a former Fortune 500 Chief Human Resources Officer, and he is an author of several books, most recently, Easy Makes Us Weak, Forging Mental Toughness, Resilience, and Character. So, please grab something that you can take notes with and sit back and enjoy this masterclass with Jim Brault.